She's known primarily as the longtime host of the mother of all infomercials.
Let me tell you about a very special phone service called the Psychic Friends Network.
She was the elegant voice of the 1960s, the singer who could break your heart with Walk On By and lift your spirit with That's What Friends Are For. With 5 Grammy Awards, more than 100 million records sold, and a career that spanned over 6 decades, Dionne Warwick seemed to belong entirely to the world. But here's the contradiction. While the world claimed her as a legend, at home she was simply Mom. Behind the gowns, the tours, and the standing ovations, Dionne was a mother trying to raise 2 boys, David and Damon, while balancing the demands of superstardom. "I have always said music is my gift," Dionne once explained, "but my children are my reason." So what really happened to the kids who grew up in the shadow of a global icon? How did they carve out their own identities while carrying the Warwick name? Dionne Warwick was born Marie. Dionne Warwick on December 12, 1940, in East Orange, New Jersey, into a family where music wasn't just entertainment, it was a calling. Her mother, Lee Drinkard, managed the Drinkard Singers, a pioneering gospel group that included Dionne's aunts and cousins, while her father, Mansell, worked as a record promoter and chef. Gospel choirs, harmonies, and Sunday services were the soundtrack of her childhood. From an early age, Dionne showed a voice that stood out. She sang in church with her family, and soon after began performing alongside her cousins, Dee Warwick and Cissy Houston, who would later go on to become stars in their own right, and who were also the aunts of Whitney Houston. Music was quite literally in her bloodline. Dionne pursued formal training, studying at Hart College of Music in Connecticut, intending to become a music teacher. But while she was still a student, she began doing session work as a background singer. Her group, the Gospelaires, became known for their professionalism and tight harmonies, landing them jobs backing up major artists. It was during one of those sessions that destiny intervened. Burt Bacharach and Hal David, 2 young songwriters looking for the perfect voice for their unique pop ballads, overheard Dionne singing backup. Bacharach later recalled, "She had this elegance, this clarity. She didn't just sing the words, she lived them." They immediately invited her to record demos. In 1962, Warwick released her first solo single, Don't Make Me Over. It became a hit, and her partnership with Bacharach and David blossomed into one of the most fruitful collaborations in pop history. Through the 1960s, Dionne delivered hit after hit, Walk On By, Alfie, Anyone Who Had a Heart, I Say a Little Prayer. Each song became a soundtrack to a generation, cementing her as a central figure of American popular music. And if you are into classic Hollywood icons, amazing stories, and newly discovered insights, then hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 10,000 subscribers, and your support will mean a lot to our channel. By the end of the decade, she had earned her first Grammy Award for Do You Know the Way to San Jose? In 1969, and she had become one of the first black women to achieve mainstream international superstardom. Critics described her as graceful, refined, and almost regal in her delivery. She didn't belt like Aretha Franklin or shout like Tina Turner. Instead, she mastered subtlety and phrasing, a style uniquely her own. But while Dionne's career soared to dazzling heights, she also felt the pull of a quieter dream, the desire for marriage, for children, for a home life that could balance the chaos of the stage. As the 1970s began, those dreams started to take shape, though not without challenges. In 1966, at the height of her early fame, Dionne Warwick married actor and drummer William Elliott. To the public, they looked like a glamorous couple. She was the rising queen of sophisticated pop. He was a charming musician with a magnetic personality. The wedding made headlines with glossy photos appearing in magazines, but behind the carefully curated image, the marriage was complicated. They divorced in 1967, only a year after their wedding, but the pull between them was strong. Later that same year, they remarried, telling friends that love was worth the risk. "Bill was my great passion," Dionne later admitted. But passion doesn't always make for peace. Eventually, by 1975, the marriage ended for good, leaving behind not just broken promises, but also the greatest blessings of her life, her two sons. David Elliott, born in 1969, arrived at a time when Dionne's career was at full throttle. She was touring constantly. Her songs were climbing international charts, and yet she remembered holding her baby for the first time and feeling a new kind of success. "I thought I knew what love was because I'd sung about it 1,000 times, she once reflected. But looking at David, I realized I was just learning what it really meant. David grew up surrounded by the energy of the music world. Microphones, instruments, rehearsals. He inherited not only his mother's musical ear, but also her commanding presence on stage. Later, he performed as a singer, drummer, and actor, even joining Dionne on tour as part of her band. Fans sometimes saw them sharing the stage, mother and son in harmony, and Dionne would often introduce him proudly. "That's my baby, and now he's a man making music with me." David also became a songwriter, most notably penning Here and Now, which became a Grammy-winning hit for Luther Vandross. In 1973, Dionne gave birth to her second son, Damon. By then, her schedule was even busier. She was a global star, but she still carved out time to nurture her children. Damon would grow into a different role in the music industry, behind the mixing boards and in the producer's chair. He became a Grammy Award-winning producer and songwriter, working with Beyoncé, Pink, Gwen Stefani, Destiny's Child, Maya, and many more. Damon credits his mother with instilling discipline and respect. "My mom showed me this business is not just about talent. It's about professionalism, showing up on time, and treating people right. That's how she survived so long. And that's what she passed down to me." Yet balancing motherhood with superstardom was never simple. Dionne often spoke candidly about the guilt of leaving her sons for tours. "I worried that they would feel I wasn't there enough," she confessed in a 1980s interview. "But I wanted them to see that their mother was working, providing, and that everything I did was ultimately for them." To lessen the distance, Dionne often brought David and Damon along on the road. Their childhood was filled with unusual but unforgettable experiences, sleeping on tour buses, watching rehearsals, meeting legends like Stevie Wonder and Aretha Franklin backstage. David once joked, "Most kids had bedtime stories. We had front row seats to sound checks." By the mid-1970s, Dionne had become one of the best-selling female vocalists in the world. She was breaking barriers, winning Grammys, and paving the way for other black female artists in pop music. But in private, she was just a mom trying to hold her family together, navigating the delicate dance of being both Dionne Warwick, the star, and Dionne the mother. By the mid-1970s, Dionne Warwick was more than just a star. She was an institution. With her elegant phrasing, sophisticated stage presence, and the unbeatable songwriting of Burt Bacharach and Hal David, she had become one of the most recognizable voices in the world. Her hits like "I'll Never Fall in Love Again," "Do You Know the Way to San Jose?" and Then Came You, with the Spinners, had secured her place as one of the most successful female vocalists of her era. She became the first African-American woman to win a Grammy in the pop category, and by the end of the decade, she was already a two-time Grammy winner. In 1979, she won another Grammy for "I'll Never Love This Way Again," proving her staying power even as musical trends shifted. Critics praised her as the voice of sophistication, and Billboard described her as a timeless interpreter who makes every lyric feel like lived experience. But while the applause grew louder, her private life remained a delicate balancing act. David and Damon were growing up in the shadow of her fame, attending prestigious schools, but also spending time in studios, backstage dressing rooms, and tour buses. Dionne often said, "My children had the strangest childhood. They went to school one day and were in Paris the next." David remembered how surreal it felt to see his mother on television while sitting in the living room. Other kids' moms were teachers or nurses. Mine was singing on the Grammys. For Damon, the exposure to music was like osmosis. He'd sit quietly during rehearsals, fascinated by the equipment, and later admitted, "That's how I fell in love with producing, just watching Mom's band set up every night." Yet the life of glamour had its challenges. Constant travel meant instability, and Dionne's fame sometimes cast a long shadow over her sons. She acknowledged this in later years. They didn't always have the most normal upbringing, but they had love, and I taught them that family is not about normal, it's about sticking together. The 1980s brought Dionne some of her biggest successes, including her iconic collaboration, "That's What Friends Are For," with Elton John, Gladys Knight, and Stevie Wonder, which won the Grammy for Song of the Year and raised millions for AIDS research. During those years, she was not only a superstar, but also a mother trying to show her sons the importance of using their talents to give back. Damon later said, "Seeing my mom use her music to help people taught me more than any school could." For David and Damon, growing up alongside their mother's meteoric career meant witnessing both the glamour of the stage and the sacrifices behind it, lessons that would shape the men they became. As Dionne Warwick's career reached legendary status in the 1990s and beyond, her two sons were already carving out their own paths in the world. Both inherited her creativity, but each expressed it in a different way. David Elliott leaned into the performance side. A natural showman, he toured with his mother as a percussionist, drummer, and backup singer. Fans often describe their onstage chemistry as electric, mother and son harmonizing not just in music, but in spirit. Dionne glowed with pride when she introduced him, saying, "He's not just my son, he's a musician in his own right." David also pursued acting and voice work, appearing in films and lending his talents to various projects. Perhaps his proudest achievement as a songwriter was penning Here and Now, the ballad that became a defining hit for Luther Vandross and earned a Grammy. He often joked that while his mother brought sophistication to pop music, he helped bring romance to R&B. Damon Elliott, on the other hand, thrived behind the scenes. Drawn to the mechanics of music production since childhood, he became a Grammy-winning producer and songwriter, collaborating with some of the biggest names in the industry, from Beyoncé and Pink to Gwen Stefani, Destiny's Child, Mia, and Christina Aguilera. Damon also explored different genres, working on everything from pop to hip-hop to film scores. He credited his mother with teaching him versatility. "Mom showed me that good music is good music, no matter what the label says." But Damon's work extended beyond the studio. He became an advocate for young artists, mentoring up-and-coming talent and building platforms to help them succeed. "That's part of my mom's legacy too," he explained, "giving back, lifting others up, using your gifts to help the next generation." Despite the demands of their careers, both David and Damon remained close to their mother. Holidays were spent together, birthdays celebrated in between tours and projects. Dionne often said that her proudest accomplishment wasn't the Grammys or the records sold, but the men her sons had become. "They are my heart," she once shared in an interview. "I see myself in them, but I also see everything I never was, and that makes me proud." As adults, David and Damon have each embraced fatherhood in their own time, making Dionne a grandmother. For her, that brought things full circle. After years of worrying whether she was present enough as a mother, she found joy in being a grandmother, a role that allowed her to give love without the same pressures of fame and constant travel. By the 2000s, Dionne Warwick had already secured her place as a living legend. She had sold more than 100 million records worldwide, earned 5 Grammy Awards, and was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. Her voice, instantly recognizable, had carried songs that became cultural touchstones. Walk On By, I Say a Little Prayer, Heartbreaker, and so many more. But beyond the music, Dionne leaned into philanthropy and mentorship. She became an ambassador for the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, and she used her platform to advocate for AIDS awareness and global humanitarian efforts. She often said, "My voice gave me a career, but my heart gives me a purpose." Even as the years went on, she never truly retired. In her 80s, she was still performing, still recording, still active on social media, where a new generation discovered her sharp wit and unfiltered honesty. She laughed about becoming Twitter's favorite grandmother, showing that her charm transcended eras. Her sons, David and Damon, continue to carry her torch in different ways. David still performs with her on occasion, their harmonies a reminder of how music had always been a family affair. Damon, meanwhile, produces and mentors younger artists, often invoking lessons from his mother about resilience and artistry. Both sons also ensure that Dionne's story is remembered in full, not just the glamorous highs, but the challenges she overcame. She taught us that success isn't about the trophies, Damon once said. It's about the impact you leave on people. Today, Dionne Warwick is celebrated not just as one of the greatest vocalists of the 20th century, but as a matriarch who turned her fame into a force for good. Her children and grandchildren keep her grounded, and they ensure her music and her values live on. And so, Dionne's legacy is twofold: the timeless records that continue to inspire, and the family who carries her story into the future. And so, Dionne Warwick's story is more than music. It's about resilience, family, and a voice that continues to echo across generations. But what do you think? Is her greatest legacy the timeless songs that defined an era, or the children and grandchildren who carry her name forward today? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the untold stories of music's greatest legends.